and happy tax day. Let's not talk about taxes. We'll skip that. We'll ignore that I said it. Glad to see everybody here. Welcome to the show. Here we are halfway through the month of April, and I love this little bit of intro because that was last weekend, a week ago, when I was with CJ down in San Diego, and we went to the AI show, and that itself was one. It was a blast, and we did so much stuff outside of that, as you can tell. So anytime I get to be around my dear sister, I love it. But to start off with, as I always do, check in on those around you. I talk about masks a lot because we're also very good at walking into places and wearing a mask. We're hiding something. We're hiding how we're feeling, how we're doing, aspects of ourselves. And quite frankly, that's part of the reason I think in this world, it's hard for people to feel like they belong, because we're always wearing a mask. We're always hiding something. But think about those around you who have gone through something. They've gone through a family medical emergency. Maybe there was a death in the family. They're having a family crisis right now of some type, or they went through a family crisis. Anything, so many different things it could be. And while we're so often there at the beginning when we find out about it, in time they put the mask on, they start smiling, and when you look at how they're doing, you think they're doing fine, when the reality is inside they're not doing fine. And fine, if you ask them how they're doing and they say fine, as Agape had said, it's feelings inward, not expressed. So fine really means nothing. Check on them, see how they're doing, and make sure that they're doing okay. When I talk about my sponsors, I always start with my dear sis, Dr. Constance Leland with Level Up Academy. I guess I started the show with her. We went to the AI show, but she's the queen of publicity. She wants to be the Netflix of education, and she is doing that. If you look at her posts, if you look at her YouTube channel, you see what she does on TikTok, Instagram. I mean, she's everywhere, and she's always teaching in so many ways. I'll talk about some of the other stuff that we're dealing with a little bit later, but I want to bring her up in terms of publicity, because she has access to her own press release room. She's got access to premium magazines at a discount. She's got access to all these different industries. Look at these different industries on here. Scan that QR code, check her out. She will not, this is what I love about her, she won't do your press release until you're ready. And if you're not ready, she will help you identify how to get ready, so that when it's time, pop, you're out there, and she's given you the best press release, the best being noticed that she can offer. And I love it. And besides, look at these. She's got podcasts, she's got a TV show, she has radio, she has live stream, all these different places that you can go. So check her out. Then I have the Hounds of Business, Mike Asherbrainer, leader of the pack. Here's a group that when CJ and I talk about collaboration over competition, that's what the pack is about. It's getting people who want to collaborate. Just because somebody does something the same as you, or you think they do, does not mean that they are the competition, that they're the ones that you have to be pushing down and getting a leg up on. They can be your best ally if you collaborate with somebody that's doing similar stuff as you, or even if it's the same. Remember, you're going to reach different audiences, And if you work together, that can actually open up the doors to more people for both of you. You get to learn from each other. You get to work together. And for some of the projects you may be looking at doing, when you can collaborate, you can notch down that anxiety from doing it all by yourself to working with somebody. So check out the Hounds of Business. It's an amazing community. There's so many great people in there, and it keeps growing. See what's there. Talk to Mike. See how you fit in. If you don't fit in, there's always going to be someplace else. Everybody is different, but check them out, because if you don't, you could have missed an amazing opportunity that may not come again. So then I want to bring up my dear sis, Danielle, with C&M Consulting, or oftentimes she just goes by CMC. And when you look at CMC, it's a leading management and advisory consulting firm that specializes in human resources, in HR. Danielle is one of the most empathy-driven and heart-led people I know, and that's how they look at solutions. Ensuring compliance with regulatory requirements while fostering a culture of trust and workplace excellence. Check them out. If you're looking at things for HR, you've got questions on it, this is the place to go. This is who to talk to. Check her out. Then I want to bring this up because in 2 weeks from yesterday, we have this amazing Human First conference, the 2025 Human First Conference, where you have 6 different topics being talked about, being presented, academic papers. I mentioned CJ teaching. Well, this has been a huge lesson for me, because this is basically writing like a PhD paper. And working with CJ has made it so much easier to do this, especially when I'm dealing with subjects that may not be something that I've done, but it's topics that are important, and it's important to stuff that I'm doing right now. When I talk about belonging, when I talk about the masks, when I talk about what it's like to be in a space where you belong and you're comfortable, that's what my paper is. You're going to get 6 different papers over these 2 days, 3 on one day, 3 on the next, and the topics are variety. CJ's talking about mentoring women. We have ADHD. We have medical for taking care of people in emergencies. It's such a variety. So check out, scan this. It's free to attend. Only 100 people can be in each Zoom, but it will be worth it. So you definitely want to check this out. Check out the schedule and become a part of it yourself by joining. And then our anthology that's out now, Grateful, A Heart Wide Open. And there we are, my dear sis and I. I love the cover of this book. I love that we've put this out, and the stories. I mean, think about how you can share a story. You're going to be featured alongside so many other powerful, driven voices. You gain credibility, and it's your chance to talk about a moment in time where gratitude basically changed your life. Having gratitude for somebody, how it was. Check this out. If you're in the Hounds of Business, I mean, yes, these come with a price tag, but we've worked very hard to keep everything low. So we look at $500 to join the anthology. If you're in the Hounds of Business, you get a 50%, a 50 cent $50 discount, 10%. Let's do it that way. If you're a previous writer with us, then you get $100 off. Everything is CJ and I. We're doing the marketing. We're doing the editing. We're working with the authors. You get time with us. You get time on our shows. And remember, CJ has TV, podcast, live stream. All of that is part of joining us in this anthology and being a part of it and sharing your story, because somebody out there needs to read your story. And when you write your story, sometimes you find out you needed to write that story at this time because it's good for you, it benefits you. So, with that, I'll take a quick look at who's here. I mean, obviously, Sis was one of the first ones in the door. I love it. And then Lisa, and I love talking about Lisa because, as you see, the menopause dietitian and coach, ladies, this is a topic Lisa knows everything about. And she was in one of our anthologies. She wrote about it. It's just her knowledge on this topic is amazing. What she knows, how she can work with you. And guys, you get to go through andropause. So you're not out of this is not just on the women's side. You get it too. Yours is different. She knows about it. So if you have questions, you can talk to her. So there's your plug, Lisa. Hey, Leanne, it's love having you here. Oh, thank you so much. And there's sis Danielle. But now it's time to bring up Janice.
Hello.
It's always fun trying to go through all of that so quickly, but to get it there and get to you, because I want to make sure we get a lot of time. We've talked connections. I mean, hey, it's nice to talk to somebody that's in the same state that I'm in.
Yay, this is true. Not that far away.
No. I know that 3-hour drive very well. And quite frankly, for me, if I drive over there, I take the southern route. I go through San Yan Pass, not over Hood.
Good for you. That's much better.
It is. It's while Hood may have a nice straight stretch after you've gotten over the mountain, getting over the mountain can be a pain.
Well, it definitely can. I agree.
Especially in the wintertime. So
Absolutely.
but let's talk about you and what where you're at. What got you to where you're at and what you're doing. And CJ will do the 20 years. I just tell me what you want to bring us up to speed of who is Janice.
Oh, I'll go back a few more years, but I won't take that long doing it because it explains a lot about what we're going to discuss. I am from North Carolina, so if I don't sound like an Oregonian, I'm not. I've been here for 15 years this month, almost to this day. And being from North Carolina, I was born and raised there as a preacher's kid. And what that meant was I got the full dose of the Southern life being a preacher's kid. And we moved all the time, it seemed like, as a kid. And with that, that kind of propels me forward into, I had a brief stint of a few years as a secretary. And thankfully, some of the guys there saw the gift of not being a secretary. They said I did not know how to take orders, Susanna, and one of them graciously took me under his wing. He was more of a seasoned salesperson, and when he did that, he taught me a little bit about sales, and I was hired away from them to sell. So my personality started to evolve because as a kid, I was always friendly and outgoing, even though I was a bit of a introvert on some, I guess there's a name for one person that's part one and part the other, because I could be introverted and outroverted. There's a word for you. Anyway, I wound up in sales for over 20 years, out doing all kinds of different things, but a long career with Canon. With that, I learned a lot about relationships on my own, and we'll delve into that as well, in a little bit. So what got me to Oregon was I got burned out on sales. I tried doing all kinds of other things, but it was time to leave the state. And much to my mother's chagrin and sorrow, I was the first one to depart. and leave the actual state of North Carolina, moved to Colorado, met someone who lived here. Well, I had never heard of Redmond, Oregon. Bend, well, I didn't know what that was either. I mean, I had no idea. I landed here, and you talk about culture shock and realizing that I was on another planet with a completely different atmosphere, culture, people, and all those skills and things that I learned of really my gifts of connecting people came so naturally. It just started to come back to me. And while I was in that marriage, we bought a business. But because I was kind of getting stuck, and I know what it feels like to get stuck, I know what it feels like to go through just about everything. And I got unstuck by we bought this nightgown business. And if anybody has known me more than 5 years, they've heard of Precious Curves. That was the name of it. So my neighbor, who belonged to this ladies group, not down in Bend, decided I needed to get out of the house, and she took me under her wing to this group, and it started there to get me back out into my natural element, not hiding in that closet of, okay, I can sit here online and play, I can sell nightgowns, I can ship nightgowns. But it was time to get real and embrace me. So that's the really short story of me from birth to now.
And so what is your focus now?
Now my focus is I do personal development training, coaching, and I'm also an author. I focus to help individual entrepreneurs, teams and groups to communicate better, build trust, and just whatever area their life might need some help. I have programs, but I'm a kind of an unusual coach. I think I'm an anomaly from what people have said, because I like to take my quote program and customize it. I know that I love what you say about fitting in, because not one size does not fit all in coaching at all. None of us do it the same. And I've had the hardest time helping people understand that, okay, well, I don't do it that way. I come over here and I say, well, Susanna, what do you need? What are you looking for in your life and business? And we go from there. And I have never had one client that was the same as another. I tell you what, I work for my money. I really do. But if I can't help people at what they're doing right now, what they need help with, then what am I here for? I don't want to send them a video or an ebook, and those things are great. I have those. However, that's just not something I want to say, okay, well, do this and come back and see how I can help you. No, I'm hands-on. I'm a hands-on trainer, coach, and the authorship, well, that's just on me.
Well, yeah, and that's what I like about that, because basically you don't niche down. You can't be put in a box, and that's the way I look at everything. It's like, I'm tired of these boxes. I'm tired of people, like you say, telling you how you're supposed to do stuff, who you're supposed to be, when that's not who you are, and trying to fit those boxes it doesn't work. I liken it to trying to contort yourself to fit into a box that you don't belong in,
Yeah.
and then how you gonna feel? Well, you're not gonna feel good for most of that time, and unless you get yourself out of it, you don't feel like you can go anywheres.
Totally. Absolutely. I I'm a movie buff, and I have to throw in a little quote here from Queen Latifah in the movie she did called Last Holiday. Spoiler alert, she doesn't die. But one line she says at the end, she's writing her note because she thinks she's dying, and she says, I spent my life in a box. I don't want to be buried in one. And I think I've done the same thing. I've spent my life in a box, and I was absolutely love the name of your show and your business, because we tend to put not just ourselves, but others in boxes. And I think you and I are on the same path of let's get you out of that box. And so yeah, that quote just always speaks to me. Because I had spent my life in a box and saw myself certain ways and self-criticism, not liking myself, never feeling good enough, and the not fitting in. I never felt like I fit in until now. I'm finding my alignment with people like yourself, uh, and Doc CJ and the group, Mike, all these guys. I'm finding that I do fit in by being myself. But honestly, even growing up, oh, I hate group sports. I hate it. And so I always got picked last, Susanna. I wasn't good at it and I didn't like it. And so, but I never felt like I fit in as an adult. And so I've had that. When you said that, I'm like, yeah, that's a big subject for me.
Well, and I know what that's like. And just like you talk about being a preacher's kid. My mom was the preacher's kid.
Oh.
So it was my grandfather who was, but Lutheran pastor. So
Mhm.
talking Midwest Dakotas, definitely different culture, different style than what you would have had. uh, in fact, it was grandma who did all the talking. So I hardly talked with grandpa because the few times I saw him, because they were in the Dakotas, we were in northeastern New England,
Ooh.
and so we only saw them maybe every 2 years. But during that time, I did not really get to talk to my grandfather. It was
Mm.
my grandmother who's doing all the talking, and she's just a chatterbox. But I mean, that's why she went to Concordia to get her MRS degree. So she was happy with that. One time I finally talked to grandpa, and it's because grandma couldn't talk. She had Alzheimer's. So
Oh.
it's like it is what it is. But there was the one time that we really had a conversation. And so
Oh.
had he been like your dad, and this is just stereotyping at this point, it
Mm.
would have been a very different conversation than what I had with him, because what I had with him was very open, very supportive. Um, I could tell him my biggest fears or issues or whatever, and I felt nothing but love and support from him.
Oh. That that is fantastic because I did my mother's dad, I never met my grandfather on that side because my mom lost her dad at 4 years old. He was never in her life to speak of. He was also a preacher, and I wanna say it was Lutheran, but, he never got ordained. He just went around and he was like one of those roving preachers, I think, from what I understand. But I was I'll tell you the story, and I'm writing my book, that my memoirs, and this will definitely be in it. But my dad told me more than once that the reason he was a preacher was so he didn't have to stay near his family and work on the farm. He didn't want to be a farmer, and preaching was easier. so, so I'm like, oh, okay. There's something to that. But yeah, my dad was disconnected. So you hit the nail on the head. We didn't have until he was near death, we didn't have any real conversation. He just couldn't relate outside of the pulpit.
Well, yeah, for me, I've got similar with my dad. We don't talk, and it's because we're very different.
Mm,
And I've had people in my life are like trying to force it. It's like, no, you can't force these things.
mm-mm.
You have to let it go its natural course. And bottom line is, I still love them.
Yeah.
I just don't feel safe around them.
Yes, I completely relate to that as well. Took me many years to understand, and I still don't totally. However, and my parents couldn't. They were disconnected emotionally. As hard as my mom tried, bless her heart, there were four of us. Susanna. There were four of us. I mean, they did have a good sense of humor about the four kids, because if I can tell another story, and I have thousands of them, I keep you on here forever. But one of the funniest stories about my family to me is I, I was born 16 months after my older brother, and the next brother was born um, 5 years later, and then my sister was born 18 months after that one. So we were almost spaced perfectly apart, but that's not the funny part. The funny part is we're in alphabetical order and we all start with J's. They alphabetized the kids.
Okay, that's we weren't alphabetized that way, but everybody did start with an S.
Oh,
So
really? I love it.
yeah, well, I mean, this is all part of what makes us who we are going into. If we want to talk about growing connections and stuff, this is part of how you connect with people, right?
Absolutely.
It's that story. It's where the connections are. It's what you have in common and how the personalities fit as well.
Right. Right. Yeah. Connections is a really, really dear subject to me, because it's come so naturally my whole life that I've connected people, I've connected with people, some good, some bad situations, and human nature, we know that kind of thing. However, even, I mean, almost every day, somebody's, and that's even yet, probably today, someone will ask me, do you know someone that does this? Or do you know someone that does that? Or I'll see it on social media and I'll go, wait a minute, I know somebody that needs to meet this person. And I just, I connect them and I let it go. And I've done that for decades. I won't say how many, but I've done it for a long, long time. However, to drop back to how I became even more engaged with people was when I was in my sales career with Canon. I was doing okay. I was, meeting people. I was doing okay, but I had been trained in the quote sales philosophy of, you know, the question, answer, the objection, the answer, all of that stuff that, you can't make a connection like that. At least it's very superficial. And one day I was in this bookstore in North Carolina where I was at the time, and I saw this little book that just said relationship selling. And I just, kind of did the head tilt and went, that looks really interesting. And I wanted to find out more. So, to say the least, I bought it. I even have an extra copy or two sitting around because I like to give those out. They're out of print, by the way, but you can get a used one. Anyway, that took my career, and I believe it was a triple or quadruple my income in about a year or less, because I was like, wow, I know how to. I mean, I'm just a natural relational person. That's me. And when I became more interested by nature with the people I was speaking with, then they became more interested in what I had to say. It was transformational for me. People, and you can't fake it, Susanna, can you? You can't fake it.
No, no, having those connections is I know what it's like. I've always had difficulties making connections because from an early age, I went from extrovert to introvert because of something that happened in the past. And so for the next, basically, I say for the next half century, I was stuck. It was hard for me to make the connections beyond the superficial. And part of it is dealing with the masks. Part of it is dealing with whatever I'm going through. And part of it is dealing with once something happens to us as a child, it's very hard to let it go.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you feel a rejection in childhood, it just kind of naturally is, you're always expecting it. And so the introvert became the way to go, and making it difficult to just reach out. So building connections has, as we talk about growing connections here, that's been the hard side for me. And only in the past couple of years, the way I put it is basically when I shed everything from the past and did a total reinvention and just said, I'm done with that. I'm done with the boxes. I'm done with, then it still took time for it to get to where I'm at now. And I still have work to do on it, but I will just say this is one of the people that made a huge difference on helping me move forward. Um, and I know there's probably a big difference between how I was when I first met her last year going to Podfest versus meeting her in San Diego last week for the AI show.
Yeah. Yeah. And things change, and we have to learn who we can trust by sensing it. The intuition. Like, if somebody doesn't feel right, that doesn't mean they're a bad person. That just means they're not right for us or
Right.
for our lives. And the the connections I've lost, I mean, I've had to let go of some in the last couple of years, especially because they weren't the best for my life. And I don't know about me for them, but I grew up as a preacher's kid learning to pretend because I saw my daddy pretend. He was one thing at church and out in the public, but at home he was completely different. I saw two different people. Of course, we call that hypocrisy, but he didn't know how to be the real him. And so I grew up, all kids pretend, right? We all do
Oh yeah.
growing up. We need to learn to use that a little bit more imagination wise, but that's another topic. However, I learned to pretend, and I learned to pretend good. Talk about mask. As a preacher's kid, oh, you better wear a mask. You better.
Yep.
And so I hid behind those too for decades, just depending on where I was. I have a friend that I grew up with, and we were in high school together, not grew up, but she was my best friend, or one of them in high school. Well, last year, after I published my book, I was sharing with her on some things, and she said, "Well, here's a story for you." Because I told a joke. I don't know. We were talking. She's, "You have always been funny." And I said, "I have?" She says, "Yeah, you made me laugh all the time and got us in trouble." Well, I didn't remember all that in high school. So she told me one of the stories, some of the little pranks that we did trying to get away from my brother, who was the driver. We trying to get away. And she goes, "You've always been funny." So I thought I started thinking about that a year ago. And went, funny? And people that know me say, yeah, that's true. So, in many ways now, that tells me that I was safe with her and I could take the mask off. Whereas, not with other people, I had to put on that, I just kind of got over that corporate, stereotype.
Yep.
One, and so, you can always tell somebody's uptight when they're out in public, or when they wind up in a bar and that's not the person that you work with. But they just act different. The mask comes off more easily. So yeah, that's one mask. I had to do the pretending as I'm the good little girl, and I played it to the hilt. Played it to the hilt.
Yeah. It's just in terms of connections, though, it becomes difficult to make the connection because there's always it's like, how would you get over this? Because we talk about growing connections,
Mhm.
it's so easy to let whatever happened in the past overwrite what you're thinking now. So it's like somebody said they wanted, you can just sit there and go, this person says they wanted to connect with me, and we connect, and then they disappear, and oh, I must have said something wrong, or something happened, and they don't like me or whatever.
Mhm.
All the negative stuff comes up, and then it's like, well, you should just reach out, see how they're doing, check on them. but I don't want to bother them.
Mm.
They might be busy. Something might be going on. I don't want to do that. And I know CJ's heard me talk about this all the time because it's something that I struggle with.
Mhm.
If I haven't, it's like, oh, I meant to touch base with this person last week, the week before, but it's been so long now. Just let it go and try and start something new.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
it's like, how do you get past? How do you get past these types of blockages to and again, it's trying to find ways to drop the mask because it's all part of that mask,
Mhm.
and to be able to reach out, engage, and stop thinking about the why. Why doesn't this happen more often? Why isn't this more frequent? Why are we not talking a lot? Uh, Knowing that part of the reason is me, because I have that difficulty reaching out at times.
Mhm.
It's like I have to have a reason to talk to somebody when that's not necessarily true. But that's how I've grown up. That's how I got to where I'm at now too.
Mhm.
The people who became important at a certain time of life, I couldn't just walk up to them and start talking. I had to have a reason to open that door. And then once I had that connection, then because I was showing up there a lot, it was easier to open up and talk. But these barriers.
Well, I completely relate to that, and boy, do I relate, because a lot of times we feel like that, but we don't know what the other person's feeling. And let's say it's a friend. I mean, business is a little different. You can still do it in business the same way, and yet it's taken a long time for me to realize I can just reach out and say, "Hi, how you doing? Is everything okay in your life?" Just be a human being, and and make you're going to be a little uncomfortable dropping that mask of reason. I got to have a reason to reach out, and just say, okay, I'm going to step out of this box of comfort and say, hey, how you doing? I mean, maybe this is several people in your life that you want to do this with, that you want to reach out and reconnect, and just start with one. I've got friends all over the US and the world. So for me, I'll go, well, it's too late. It's too late. I don't, like you said, I don't want to bother them. And yet they could be sitting there thinking, I don't want to bother her. And and so you're being the person who says, you know what, I don't care what they think. I just want to see how they're doing. And if they don't want to talk to me, they won't respond. Um, and it means making yourself uncomfortable checking on things. And this really played into my business for a long time, where, oh my goodness, following up with a prospect, oh gosh, because I don't want to hear, I don't need you, I don't want to hear, I don't want what you have, or I don't want to. And then I get excuses from them. I'm like, okay, fine. And
You
that,
don't have connection.
that's, and that comes from our own insecurity and sense of feeling rejected, because nobody wants to be rejected. However, flip the script. That's gotten kind of mundane, but it's true. And say, well, okay, they're not in alignment with what I'm doing or where they are right now. Just be there. If they ask a question, just be there, and let yourself be transparent. Just say, reach out and say, because I've got a really good friend and she might watch this. So hi there if you do. And she's in Mississippi, and we've known each other for about 15 years, 16, something like that. And we'll go for a while. And last week I said, oh my gosh, I haven't texted you for what happened to the last week. And she's got kids and she's got a husband and I got a cat. So she's a little busier. Um, but she went, yeah, that's crazy. But I just said, okay, I'm just going to reach out first, because honestly, Susanna, I'll tell you one thing that I am guilty of, and that is I'm the one that does all the reaching out, it seems. It feels that way to me.
I
It,
get that.
yeah. And there's family members and stuff that I've done that with. And there's times you set those healthy boundaries for yourself that you don't. There's certain people you reach out first to, and there's certain people you go, no, I'm just going to set that aside. And when I hear from them, we'll communicate. But yeah, make yourself uncomfortable. Climb out of that box of, oh, I don't want to bother somebody, and bother them because maybe they need bothering, because who knows, they could be sitting there needing to talk to you.
Yeah, it's hard to do that because it's so easy to say what you said
Mm-hmm.
and to say it to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's I've done that to myself as well. It's like, just, you don't know that what you're thinking in your head is true. Just do it. I
Right.
mean, Nike's right over here, so it's like, just do it. But it's not that easy, because
No.
then, and there's, for some of us, depending on how things have changed over life, then it can be even more difficult to reach out to somebody from the past, because you're trying to figure out, how do you answer questions about, um, going from point A to point B, or maybe actually it's like, you go from point A, which is the last time that they saw you and they know you, to now you're at point M. You've gone through so many different turns, directions, changes, reinvent this, reinvent that, that how to try and just do a shortcut and just say, just accept it and let's go from there.
Exactly. Let's fast forward because I have a cousin who, that lives pretty far away, in Florida, and we didn't connect for years and years. He followed me a little bit on social media, but not really. It wasn't his game. However, the fast forward was, yeah, this happened, that happened, the other happened, and so how are you doing? you know, it's there are people you can share everything with, but here's something that I realized. I want to say it was within the last 2 years, and especially as I was writing my book and getting that ready, I realized that in my journaling, and I've journaled for 30 years, and I have a pile of them over here to prove it. I would keep rewriting every morning. It seemed like, okay, this is what's wrong, that's what's wrong, how am I going to fix this? So it's okay to do it a little bit, get it out of your system. But I realized I was just regurgitating all the problems, and we know about the fact that continuing to do that, yeah, it kept giving me more reasons to regurgitate the problems. True when talking to people, there's just stuff people don't need to know, and if they're not a place where it just doesn't benefit anybody to keep rehashing. And let's say you've gone through a major life situation, and like, well, things changed and I'm moving on. You've got to determine if somebody needs to hear it, wants to hear it, if it even makes a difference. And again, you know about safe places as much as I do, if not more. So yeah, I'd say just don't do a I call it a verbal vomit on people.
Yes, that is definitely one of those things to be careful of, because
This
you have to know who you can do it with, and that will take me straight into belonging when we're talking about that, because you can't just do that with anybody. And I've seen people that they just do it
mm-hmm.
nilly, and quite frankly, to me, especially something like that, that's the innermost circle. That's the people that that you can do that, and they're not going to judge you. They're
Right.
not going to basically step on you, argue with you, um, that it's going to be, it can be a conversation, and you know and you feel that the questions that they ask as you're doing it, you know it's coming from a place of love and
Exactly.
not somewhere else.
Exactly, exactly. And we all have our dose of it on social media where people just have no filter. And that can be really, I tend to fast forward on a lot of that. I I have I have a very, very tight circle. Although my story is on my website through my blogging, a lot of it, there are things that people don't know,
Right.
and that's the way it should be, because you've got to have a safe place or two, just a very close circle that know you well enough that you can share your heart, open up. But I know that, speaking of feelings and connections, I spent my whole life, like I said, pretending, but what that did was that shut down my ability to feel,
Mhm.
to even know what feelings were, Susanna. I was in a class, I think about 10 years ago, maybe 11. And it wasn't a class, it was a gentleman who was a workshop type of thing, in person at the time. And what he was sharing, he said, "Well, Janice, how does that make you feel?" I did this. I went, "I don't know what you're talking about." I I was literal. I mean, people chuckled, but I just sat there and looked at him with the deer in the headlights. "Hey, can you explain, what do you mean by how do I feel?" I just could not
Right.
feel. I couldn't feel. And now I've got super strong intuition and I do know how to feel. Sometimes it's inconvenient. So, but
Yeah.
truthfully, it's like I can share with you, and when you're close to somebody, they can feel your pain or your joy. And in making the right connections, we're talking personal here, the business too, but have discretion is a word that comes to me. Have discretion until you feel safe. But removing the mask doesn't mean you're being, um, in a bad way, vulnerable. It just means you're being you. And not everybody's going to like who I am or who you are. And that's okay.
That's the important thing, is that authentic self, and not throwing out authentic as we hear it thrown around all over the place a lot. I mean, to me, that being your authentic self is who you're created to be at your core.
Mm-hmm.
Who you are is who you are at your core. Um, that person deep inside, and CJ and I will talk faith as well, because it's like it's a foundation. I can't do things without that foundation.
Mm-hmm.
But in many ways, I view it also as everybody's everybody is in his image, because it's our soul that's in his image, not the shell.
Right.
Because every shell is different.
Mm-hmm.
Every shell is created differently. And to say that you are what the shell is, that's not true. Because maybe your shell has a something like cerebral palsy or something,
Yeah.
but you could be the smartest person in the room,
Yes.
and you need to be seen as who you are, not what you look like or what is stereotyped.
Mm. Absolutely. Think about someone who's lost their sight or was born without sight.
Right.
They have no ability to judge what you look like. And in some ways, they're better off because they're probably less judgmental overall. Can't say that blanketly because I don't want to lose my sight. But I keep feeling I seem to bring up this movie in almost every podcast. I don't know why. I do know why. It's amazing. It's called The Mystery of Her, and I don't know if you've seen it.
I don't recognize it.
It is one of the most powerful movies. I've seen, because it's a girl that's a senior in high school that's in a near fatal car accident and loses all of her memory of her past. And at the end, you get the gist of she's finds out that she wrote poetry, but she hid it from everybody. She was a soccer star. She was popular. She went with the high school football, hero. And in the end, none of that connected with her anymore. Her real soul and person was a poet. And I'm gotten chills just talking about it. But when she lost her memory of who she was, she found who she had been. She found out who she really is and she's meant to be. And I can't recommend it enough, but I recommend it with just enjoy it a few times and then come back and watch it again. With You'll get blown away. It speaks profoundly of stereotypes and being what other people expect. And she was trying to be what her parents said, now you'll get back to your old self. And she's like, I don't know if I want to.
Exactly. Who we are is already in us.
Exactly.
It's the fact that everybody else is trying to tell us. I mean, that's why I did my own reinvention. It's like, I'm tired of being told who I am, what I'm supposed to be, what I'm supposed to do, what is expected of me, because you don't know me. The only people who know me are me and my creator.
Yes.
Nobody else knows me because he's the one that created me. And he made me different than everybody else.
Yes. Beautifully different, too. It takes time to really embrace that. And if you've been in bad situations, bad relationships, and those images are impressed at a young age, but then if you don't know how to get free and get out of that box that you've lived your life in, then you wind up going into other situations that keep you stuck in a similar box. And in a previous situation I was in, it was just another pattern. When I started looking at the pattern in my own life, it was humbling. I had to literally just, okay, this is hard. It's not going to be easy, but own this thing because it's your life. You made decisions, and forgive yourself. Let yourself and I wrote a blog on this too. Set yourself free. We have that power. We have that power. And when we accept that we have the ability to be free, nobody can take it away from you except you.
Yeah. It's that's why I love, especially talking with women, is just that you have the ability, igniting that awareness that you're the one that makes the choice. You're the one that who's controlling you. You know what's controlling you, because it could be our fear, imposter syndrome. It can be somebody else because of their words, and you're supposed to look up to them and accept what they say. And the reality is, you are you. And the minute that you step up and start walking your path instead of somebody else's, then things open up. And I'll take that right back to, it's like, that's still part of connecting.
It is.
You have to be yourself to really make those positive connections.
Yes, you do. And it's vital that we find out who we really are. Spend time with yourself. I always encourage journaling or something that will let you just listen to your own heart, listen to your own intuition. And that allows you to connect to others. And truly, whatever we've been through or go through, if we open up, that right connection will be there that we can make a difference. If it's just one or two lives, that one person can say, oh my gosh, I needed to hear what you wrote today. I needed this so bad. What you said, what you wrote, however that gets to them, can make a profound difference. And in writing a book. One person, a good friend of mine, on the first book, he's on his third, but the first, he said, one gentleman, I didn't know if it was impacting anybody, and one gentleman wrote back and said, your book changed my life. And we don't know, but if, like you said, if you're not being yourself, you won't connect with the right people that need you and that you need.
Time flies.
Oh my gosh, no, we're not out of time, are we?
I just looked at the clock and it's like, oh, wait, we've been doing this for 56 minutes already?
You got to be kidding me.
I, I was like, okay. It's like, we're coming up to the end. We definitely need to do this again because
Yes.
there is just so much on the topic and there's so many ways to view this particular topic. Um, connections come in so many different ways. But before we close out, I want to make sure that you take a chance to take some time to let people know how to find you, any last minute golden nuggets, and anything that you want to talk about that you're doing.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. I'm easy to find. I'm janicedebo.com on the web. I'm on social media, mostly Facebook, LinkedIn, and on Alignable. And probably the best thing that I can offer, I do have a free ebook on my website. Gosh, I keep forgetting to mention that. So thank you. That came back. And I'd love it if you go in to my website and grab my free ebook. And that'll give you a taste of my my blogs. I got podcasts on my website. I've got blogs on my website, and they're all educational, informational, encouraging. And you can order my full journal. If you order it online from my website, guess who signs it and sends it to you personally? That would be me. I love doing that. You can get it on Amazon, but frankly, it's not nearly as personal on Amazon. Uh,
Exactly.
no, and I don't have any workshops coming up at the moment, but I am seriously considering doing one on collaboration. And Susanna and I can talk a little bit more about that because I feel that is vital for us because we can be intimidated by somebody who's doing better or over ego by somebody doing not so good. So those are the main ways to reach me. I'd love to have a conversation. I do personal development training and coaching, and I love to work with individuals, entrepreneurs, and teams. Teams are exciting and fun. So reach out if you have any questions. I'm easy to find. I've got a big old Google my business page that'll pop up too. And words of wisdom.
Yep.
Okay, just a nugget before the clock shuts us off. I would say be true to yourself. Susanna speaks of that all the time. And be true to who you are. And if you don't know who you are, then let's help you find who you are. That's what we do. Let us, we're like, we've got the flashlight and we'll go ahead and walk beside you and help guide you so you can start to get out of your own way.
And that's what matters. Get out of your own way. Because sometimes we're the ones that are the biggest problem because we won't get out of our way.
That's 1,000% yes.
Exactly. Well, I'm so glad that you were here. And yeah, we definitely need to find time for more because this just went so fast.
Yes.
And, and it's filled with stories too. And everything goes back to what does it mean to grow connections and build those connections because it can be hard. I know what it's like for how hard it can be to build. Now it's time to just turn that around and make it easier. So thank you for being here and thank you everybody who showed up and I will see everybody next week.
Thank
Bye.
you very much.